I'd lost that faith somewhere along the way. And so I really dug deep into my spiritual practice and rebuilding that faith with source. And it was I was kind of forced into it, right? Because things started to unravel and it all happened at the same time. Like the person that I thought I was going to be with long term, just out of the blue, disappeared from my life. And my income was starting to unravel and I was trying to push things forward. And I kept feeling this calling, like, you're meant for more, you're meant for more, you're meant for more. But what does that look like? And I was trying to hold tightly to what I wanted, what was comfortable for me, and not allowing that expansion. It was like, I've arrived. I've got the guy, I got the business, I got the this, I got the that, I got the apartment that I wanted, I got everything that I put on that list. And I don't want to let go of any of it.
I'm Dr. Williams, and this is my podcast. I have 2 graduate degrees in psychology, am a licensed mental health counselor, and an expert in the area of spirituality. I am devoted to living my best life and am sharing it with all of you. I'm bringing my expertise, education, and life experiences to you through this podcast. Everyone deserves to enjoy life, and that is what I'm here to talk about. Depression, anxiety, grief, you name it, we all go through it at one time or another. I believe there's a better way to come at these things than mainstream mental health care offers, and I'm here to offer you my perspective and dig into discovering how you can feel good no matter what life throws at you. It is my intention to contribute goodness to this world, and the content herein is how I do that. But one disclaimer before we dive in: should you decide to apply the information offered here, be prepared for improvements in your life. You may even live happily ever after, and you'll only have yourself to thank. This is Feel Good Now, the Dr. Williams podcast. Hey guys, I'm here today with Johanna Hunt, and Johanna is somebody that I met when I started podcasting. It was my first interview ever. She invited me to be on her podcast, the Unfiltered Life podcast, and it was a really good experience for me, but I was a little nervous and, kind of working out those first interview bugs. But what I really got out of it was meeting her, and she is such an amazing person. So I wanted to have her on the podcast to share with all of you guys. So Johanna, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. And you absolutely nailed the interview, by the way.
It didn't feel that way.
Oh, it never does to us. We can be so hard on ourselves, but from the external perspective, you just have such a beautiful disposition.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, can you just kind of give everybody an idea of what you do? So many things. So what's the gamut? What all are your irons in the fire?
Yeah. So I am a multi-passionatepreneur, so to speak.
I love that.
And I have been that way for longer than I can remember. I just didn't know that's what I was. Like I couldn't put a title on it because it wasn't really a thing. So, I've never had a 9-to-5 traditional type of job. I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, living on 20 acres, only child till I was 9, spending a lot of time creating, entertaining myself, being with my pets. I would, draw and paint and sew and write and read. I don't understand how people can't entertain themselves. I was always self-entertained.
Your parents probably loved that about you.
Yeah, there's always something to do. At the time, I didn't realize those were some of my best attributes to being an entrepreneur. And so I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't want to go to college or university, but I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I went for a year and then I dropped out and I went and I traveled for 7 years. I just experienced life. I worked on yachts and I worked in hotels and I bartended and I served and I scrubbed toilets and I just did lots of things I was experiencing. And when I moved to Canada, I was just about to turn 21. I wasn't able to work legally. So I volunteered in exchange for ski passes and food and beer, which was all I needed really to be happy at that time.
A lot of people are relating right now.
And that time, it was like, I paid $300 for my bunk bed, for my portion of the bunk bed in a room with 6 other people. And I was completely happy. That's all I ever wanted to be. And it's funny because then I got to this point in my life where, later down the road where I thought I needed, like, ambition meant something else, but I was always ambitious, right? Like, I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to get the things that I desired. So anyways, I started volunteering, and then I came into the event world sort of through that work, doing this volunteer work for like World Cups and biking events and ski events. I found my passion. So I sort of stumbled upon my passion, and, they say, do what you love, you'll never work a day of your life again. And so that's what I did. And I had this really incredible work ethic. And so they found loopholes for me to be able to contract on for these events. And I started to piece together a full-time career through networks and through experience. And I built my own sort of business, and I would contract out through Grand Fondo and these different things. And it was really great, but I got a little bit tired of having to piece together a full-time income, and it was great for about 10, 15 years. And then, when you start to want to start a family and start to diversify things in your life, you don't want to do that anymore. And so I worked with the Olympics in 2010 in Vancouver. That was kind of my ultimate goal. And I was working 60 to 80 hours a week during that time. And I just realized, like, I don't want to ever do this again. I don't actually ever want to work for somebody again. A lot of it was desk job stuff. And I was like, this is not me. Like, I'm not good at being told what to do. I'm not good at doing things in a certain way. I need fluidity. I need flexibility to be me and to create. And so I started reading a lot of books about finance. I didn't want to be broke either.
Who does?
Right? So how do I have time freedom? How do I have flexibility? How do I make money? And like, I had this, like, I'm an idealist. And, a lot of people thought I was crazy, like chasing this illusion that this is something that you can have. But I was determined to, like, I would have walked through a brick wall to find it. And so I read a lot of books on passive income and residual. Facebook Pages was launching. I started my own fan club. Who does that? But I did. And so funny. And I just knew there was something to this social media world. And so, but I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was 30. I was a new mom. I remember going to this vision board party, and all these women were like, just like cutting and pasting, and they knew exactly what they wanted on their board. And I was kind of sitting there in the corner with a glass of wine, like kind of flipping through the pages, like, and what I realized is, when I look back, is part of it was I didn't believe I could get. I didn't feel like I had a vehicle to get what I wanted to put on that vision board. There was a disconnect for me that if I put it on that vision board, I'd have to face either I'd have to do something about it, or I would have to face the disappointment of what if it doesn't work out for me? What if I can't do this?
So you kind of preferred to live in the neutral zone where you weren't making a distinct decision.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because once you did make that decision, who you are meant, okay, now I have to do something about it.
Absolutely. I think that's what happens a lot of times. We don't want to face these things, whether it's a commitment to a relationship or a business. Like, once you allow yourself to go to that place, there's no unseen, there's no undoing, there's no going back. It's like going through a spiritual awakening, and you start to operate from this different level of being. You can't go back to the way you were operating. You can't go back to situations and types of relationship dynamics.
No, you can't unknow something that you know now. Like, you know it. So now I know I want this. I'm aware of it. Now there's nothing but going forward.
Absolutely. I said to my mom yesterday, a story popped up from the past, and I was telling this story about this relationship that I was in. And it's so interesting because the story I was telling, I thought was a true story at the time, but, time has gone by and it wasn't a true story. It was true to me. But what was actually happening, which I found out later, and I said to my mom, ignorance really is bliss. Look how happy I look in this video. Like, not knowing what I now know about this person. Ignorance really is bliss.
Wow. Yeah.
Because then you have to start to do the work when you see these things. And that's where I got to. And it took me probably 6 months of me having a couple things cut out to finally make that vision board. And once I did that, opportunities started to open up. And so that was in 2012. My daughter was just a couple months old, and I started my business in direct sales to go in the online space. And over time, that just started to unravel. And so as I started to seek out mentorship and guidance and training on how to build a business online in the direct sales space, I learned about attraction marketing. Even though I'd gone to school for marketing, it was a completely different world. And I started to learn about affiliate marketing, and I started taking courses. And I started implementing that work online, these attraction marketing principles, and also learning about the law of attraction and myself integrating my spirituality and my law of attraction with my marketing attraction.
Yeah. Well, when you were first talking about that, when you said that you finally got a couple things on your vision board and then things just started happening,
Yeah.
my thought was, okay, you're a powerful manifester.
Yes.
As soon as you make a decision and get clarity about what you want, it comes into your experience. And that's a really good place to live life.
Fast moving energy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Absolutely. And people don't realize the power that they hold when they decide
Yeah.
that they want something. Like that single decision, and suddenly it's like the whole universe conspires to assist you to get that thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have to be patient as it unfolds, which is one of my challenges in life.
Enjoying the journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it started to unfold, and I started to realize, like I don't have to be one thing. And there was a lot of unraveling that had to come with that. Like I don't need to just be a network marketer, or I need to just focus on this. But, people started to see what I was doing, and they started to reach out and ask me, and I started to create free resources just to help people. And then I would promote these affiliate programs, and people started to come to me and they're like, well, I want to learn from you. And so it evolved into me creating courses and coaching and creating this multifaceted business, which I now call magnetic marketing, which is align, impact, attract. And really it's about alignment. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what business you're in, whatever you're wanting to attract in your life, it's all about that alignment, like just allowing the rest to kind of unfold. And we get this idea of how things should be, our idea. And that's sometimes what leads us astray and messes up everything.
So have you helped a lot of people to quit their day job, so to speak, and really find their passion in life and something that's more fulfilling in their career? Is that kind of what you do?
It is what I do. It's a big part of what I do in different scenarios, right? So I have the Freedom Fempire for women who are wanting to create freedom and abundance, but they don't have an idea, but they want to be part of a community. They want to turnkey business. And then I have courses for women who have ideas, but they're not sure how to manifest it into the physical. Like they don't know the structure of it. So it's one of those things where, they're passionate, they're excited about what they're doing, they feel their calling, but they might have blocks around like, I can charge for this. And understanding how they can monetize it. And that's something I've always been really great at, is showing people like how they can take a passion and a purpose and actually turn it into their life's work. And then I also teach structure around that so that your business doesn't run you. Like my first business ran me right into the ground. And so there's a lot of strategies that I've learned over time to scale and grow without being the typical, like there's a difference between entrepreneur and business owner and being self-employed. And self-employment is going to run you into the ground because you are the do all be all to everybody and everything. And that was me in my first business. I walked away from the Olympics and I was like, okay, I'm going to start an event planning business. And then I was, the marketer. I was the graphic designer. I was the networker out trying to find clients. And then I was selling my own product. And then I had to actually do the event. And so how do you make money when you're doing all these things without creating a team? And you need money to have a team. And so I figured out different ways of building a business that don't involve all those things, utilizing technology and outsourcing and systemizing. And so I'm able to do all these different things without having to do all the things.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's all under personal branding.
So my thought was, here you are working with these people who really want to be doing what you're doing, right? Because you have created this career for yourself that is fulfilling, but you are really in tune with source and using law of attraction. What if somebody doesn't have that kind of background or that kind of influence? They don't know what they're doing as far as their energy goes. Do you teach that also?
I do. Not as a primary. That is not my sort of where I position myself in my expertise, but I integrate it in the work that I'm doing. And it's one of the biggest recommendations I make, because we can be doing all these things and never progress because our state of being is not in the right space. I remember working with this woman who was just like such a powerhouse. She was so professional and she was such a doer, and she was completely systemized and organized. And, like I would give her a task list for like her daily method of operation for marketing. And she would just like 10x it beyond everybody else and sold nothing. Never made a dime over like the course of a year. And I was like, I don't understand. I try to get people to be this productive. And then I have other people who don't work that much, and yet they walked away from a job in 4 months that they hated, and now they're living their best life. And they, and their family is their priority, and like, why? And I was always trying to figure out, because I wanted to help everybody, which was one of my downfalls. It's like a blessing and a curse. But
that's endearing.
I was always trying to figure it out, right? And then I went through that myself, and I went through, after my divorce and moving to a new city, or moving back to a city, and kind of the life I knew, or the life I thought I was creating, unraveling, and then trying to figure out like what I wanted to create. I went through a lot of inner turmoil, and I had my dark night of the soul. And I went through this period of time, like over the course of maybe a year or so, where I just felt so lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do or be. I was completely disconnected from everybody and everything, mostly because I was disconnected from self, and I was disconnected from source. And I'd lost that faith somewhere along the way. And so I really dug deep into my spiritual practice and rebuilding that faith with source. And I was kind of forced into it, right? Because things started to unravel, and it all happened at the same time. Like the person that I thought I was going to be with long-term, just out of the blue, disappeared from my life. And my income was starting to unravel, and I was trying to push things forward. And I kept feeling this calling, like, you're meant for more, you're meant for more, you're meant for more. But what does that look like? And I was trying to hold tightly to what I wanted, what was comfortable for me, and not allowing that expansion. It was like, I've arrived. I got the guy, I got the business, I got the this, I got the that, I got the apartment that I wanted, I got everything that I put on that list, and I don't want to let go of any of it. And I kept hearing this calling, like, you're meant for more, you're meant for more. And there was times, like, it was dark. It was dark during that time. Like, I felt super alone. I didn't know what was happening to me. And, I was stuck in Canada. My family's in Europe and California, and I wasn't able to see them because of situations. And I sat with myself, and I went into the mountains, and I went on a road trip by myself for a week. I just disappeared into the forest and became one with nature, and I journaled, and I meditated, and I burned logs on a fire, and I read, and I was really like being for the first time. And it was such a weird experience. Like, I just had this pulling. It all just opened up. Like, I woke up one morning and I was like, I have to go. I have to go. I have to get out of here. And I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I got in my car with a sleeping bag and a cooler, like a freaking crazy person. And I drove out of Vancouver like a bat out of hell as far as I could drive. And then I got there and I just bawled. And I slept on the side of the road by this lake. in my car. The next day I got up and I drove further, and I found this amazing waterfall park. And for 2 days I was up at like 4 a.m. hiking waterfalls, just like being for the first time. No past, no future, just full presence. And I ended up in Jasper, and I'd never been there. 20 years in Canada, I'd never been to Jasper. And I got there and I sat at this little campfire for hours, burning logs, reading, journaling, praying, connecting. And then I had this sudden urge that I had to go home. All of a sudden I was like, I have to go. And I saw nature. I saw grizzlies and bears and moose. Like literally every type of wildlife came out to meet with me, to connect with me. It was incredibly powerful. And and then I was like, I have to go home. And I drove 9 hours straight back to my apartment. And I was reading this book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. And the next morning I got up. I always get up and I have coffee in bed and I read. And so I'm reading this book, and it tells this story about this woman who's disconnected from her masculine. And she goes up into the mountains this witch tells her to go up to the mountains and find this bear and do this whole thing. And she climbs and she goes through all these different challenges and these storms. And then she comes off the mountain and she brings this witch, this hair from this bear that she was told to go and find. And the witch throws it in the fire and just says, okay, now it's time to do the real work. So you go through all of these experiences and you learn all these things about yourself. And then you actually have to do the work and you have to put it into practice. And after that trip, I launched my podcast that I'd sat on for such a long time. I've launched 2 courses. I launched my one-on-one coaching. I launched a group course, group coaching called Radical Expansion. I started to write my book. And it just within 6 months, I radically transformed my life. Wow. From feeling so lost.
Your journey really makes me think of a Native American, what's the word where they go out on the spiritual journey? There's it's like a big event for Native Americans when they go out on their spiritual quest and find themselves. And that's what that was. And what I love so much about it is even though you felt like everything was falling apart, you still were tuned in enough to listen to that impulse when it was like, you need to leave now. And it was urgent. You got out. You had this amazing experience. And then you got the impulse to go back. Like you were so in tune with your source, your inner being, that communication was like a phone call, right? Like it was like communicating to you, this is what I have to do. Isn't this so much fun to listen to this conversation? This could be you. Do you guys want to be on the show? If you do, go to drwilliamspodcast.com and go to my scheduling calendar and set up a free 30-minute pre-interview call. You have something to say. We all do. So if you want to be a guest on the show, set up the time so that we can talk about it and see if we can formulate an episode around what you have to share about your unique perspective on life. For now, we'll just get back to this interview.
And I think so many people actually have that, but we have been conditioned to ignore it.
Yes.
Because it doesn't fit into the box of what is expected of us, what we're supposed to be as a woman or as a human.
Well, we're kind of trained out of it. We learn from a very young age that our emotions are to be suppressed, not to be tuned into and used as our guidance, which is what it really is.
It's a scary process because there's things you need to survive in this world. You need money. So if you're just going to burn your whole business down and do something completely different, that is a massive leap of faith.
Yeah. This spiritual awakening for you was kind of like a rock bottom.
Yeah.
It was a low, but it actually was a high. But you had to go through it in order to find that out. And I think so many people are in that situation, there's a huge awakening happening in our world right now. A lot of people are going through this spiritual awakening, and they're in these scary states, and it's hard to not get wrapped up in the negativity of it. But if you can just kind of embrace it, then that's where the positivity blooms, and then it changes your whole life like it did for you.
Absolutely. It's happening for us. And there was a part of me that knew that because I've done so much personal development work. I've read all the books. I've attended events, I've listened to Jim Rohn and Think and Grow Rich. And so it's like, I've heard other people's stories. I've been in that world, and I know things have to fall apart to fall together. So it wasn't, even though it was dark and lonely, there's always this part of me. And I think I've always had this guidance. I've always been, since I was really young, like I prayed and I had this spiritual connection. But spiritual awareness and connection is very different from when you go through an awakening and you ascend. They're different things, right? And finding yourself, like I was finding myself for a long time, right? Like I would travel and I would connect with people and I'd have these experiences. I'm like, I'm finding myself. Finding yourself is actually sitting in your own shit and like truly connecting with the messy part. It's not traveling the world and having fun. That's not soul awakening. Like, yes, it's part of the process. But for a long time, like I thought I was very spiritual and I thought I was very connected and I was finding myself and all that stuff. It wasn't until I was in full stillness and not doing anything to entertain myself or having external validation or anything outside of myself, but just like here. And it's not something that just stops. Like it's always evolving, right? Like healing and growing. Like there's no destination. It's a life's work. But it wasn't what I thought. Finding myself wasn't what I thought I was going to be. It was a lot messier and a lot less attractive.
So now that you have found your role in this lifetime anyway, what would you say your intention is? Is it just to use your story to share that with others and encourage them, empower them to do the same kind of thing?
For me, one of the biggest things is reclaiming my voice and activating that part of myself. And not just like, feeling confident in doing video or being on podcasts, but this like inner confidence that comes from like, I am who I am, like it or not, doesn't matter. I'm not for everybody and I don't care. And it took a lot of like healing work to get to that place and moving out of codependent behaviors and patterns. And that were showing up in my romantic relationships, my dynamic with my children, my dynamic with my ex-husband, my parents, everything in my business. And when I found my voice and I knew what that was, like there was just something that transitioned for me. And so, I've been in marketing and business and personal branding, but I could never really narrow it down to like what I want to help people with. Like if I had to do that one thing, and it really is becoming fully expressed in yourself. Because when you find your voice, that's what brings your brand to life. That's what brings your marketing to life. It brings your business to life. It sets the tone for healthy relationships and to attract what you actually want. And when I activated that part of me, it's like everything started to change, and you see people have these quantum leaps in these like overnight successes. And all of a sudden they're like, it looks overnight. It's not. But that's really what I see when I see a woman like really truly awaken to herself and to start to activate that part of her and her voice, and then bring that into like creating a podcast or a coaching business or some sort of like activating her gift, like that lights me up because she starts to trust herself and her inner guidance. Yeah. Right. And she starts to impact the other people by activating that part of herself. And that's where brands feel dead, like that fall flat. You see people, they're an expert in social media marketing, but you can't tell them from any other social media marketing expert because they don't know themselves. They don't know their voice. And there's a lack of depth. So if I can help women really come into that authentic expression of self and really connect to them and who they are and like own that and be proud of it, then I've done a good job.
I love that. I love that so much. When we were chatting before, when we were kind of talking about doing this episode, you shared with me how much money you're making in a month. Do you feel comfortable sharing that with the audience? Like just to speak to your success a little bit and give them an idea of what's possible.
Yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people think you can't make money from a hobby or, an artist or creator or whatever. My basic living expenses are $7,000 a month to live in Vancouver. So that covers my bills and that covers my groceries and my gas. If I'm not doing any trips, if I'm not skiing, if I'm not doing anything else, that is my baseline. So I can't make income claims with my business, but I can tell you what it costs just to cover making my ends meet. And it's wild to me because there was a time where my ex-partner and I, we couldn't afford $2,000 in rent together with joint. We were barely getting by, right? And so it's interesting to me because we will see people with these cute little social media businesses showing up vulnerably and sharing their stories, and they're lighthearted and they, it looks fun and cute and whatnot. The women who are doing that are some of the women who are making the most money, right? I can't live under six figures in this city. It's not even possible.
Wow.
And so the thing is that when you have a system in place and when you're really connected to what you're doing and when you let go and you outsource with tools, like I have an assistant that helps me with my social media because I had to really understand where I thrive and what drains me of energy. And so anything that drains me of energy, where I need the energy to give my best in other areas, I outsource that. So I've now outsourced all my social media marketing so that I can focus on my content creation, my podcast, my YouTube videos, and I can really give more to that. And then all the technical stuff that doesn't really require my help or my effort or my work, the busy work, I outsource. And I have a few different people who I do that with. I have somebody who does my YouTube, helps me with YouTube and SEO and that sort of stuff as well. And I think that's where you step out of being self-employed and you step into being the CEO of your company, right? And it's in the letting go piece. It's that trust, that faith, knowing that it's going to work out. And money is energy. Mm-hmm. And so whatever state of vibration that we're in and our ability to receive and our ability to be open to opportunities and our ability to decide on something, that's where we create that space. And then when we invest our money into other things, into our business, into our growth, into our healing work, then we circulate that money, right?
Yeah.
And so there's certain things I do, outside of just knowing how to run a business, I make sure I pay my bills on time or early. And I make sure that I pay attention to my money. So I'm budgeting. And I never say, when my daughters want something, one of the things I never wanted to say, I was very intentional about, was to not say, we can't afford that. That's just not part of the vocabulary. So if it's something additional that they're wanting, it's something that's an investment. And we talk about this a lot. Everything we spend our money on is an investment. It's an investment in something that brings us joy. It's an investment in something that grows us, makes us healthy. That's how we spend our money. We don't spend it frivolously. Just because we have it doesn't mean we go out and just give it out just for the sake of it. We respect money. We have a good relationship with it. We create good boundaries with it. And I think that's really important too, right? To really give it attention, to reinvest it. And that's probably the biggest thing I see where people are stunted in growth is that scarcity mindset and, not wanting to try new things, not wanting to put the money in. And it's wild. I've seen it a lot in my industry, particularly in the network marketing industry where I started. It blows my mind how people want to make money but do not want to invest in themselves.
Right. Well, it's kind of like what you were saying with hiring people, like a new business, right? They're like, well, I got to start having some income before I can start outsourcing. But if you can do it with faith,
Yeah.
then you know that that money is going to come because you entered into a positivity, and that's attractive.
Yeah. And it's going to come faster because you have now duplicated yourself. So you don't wait to hire help until you need it or hire a coach until you need it, because that is what you need in order to grow, in order to make money, right? And we were just talking about this on the last podcast. I was interviewing this woman and we were just talking about how everything is the opposite of what we think it is. We don't commit to something after we know for sure it's going to happen. Like I was coaching with one of my students, one of the women on my team recently. She's fairly new and it's been like a couple months and she's not quite seeing the results that she's wanting. And that's a very short amount of time. And so she says, I'm starting to feel like I'm running out of time and resources to keep myself going. And I'm not sure. And I think I'm going to give it this much time. And then I'm going to, maybe I'm just not going to do this. And I was like, well, that's a possibility for you, but I'm going to tell you what has worked for me. When I make a decision, I close the back door and that's it. And I make the decision that I'm going all into something. And I think whatever I've done in my life, that's why I get results from it, because I commit before I know it's going to work out. And so, that's faith, right? That's having faith in the unknown and the unseen. You don't have a baby and then go, well, I hope this works out.
That's a good example.
I hope I'm going to be a good parent. If I'm not, maybe
right?
I'll just, change my mind. I mean, I guess
some people do that.
But and it's one of those things you have to pay things forward. You have to, there is no guarantee, but the guarantee, it lies in the faith. It lies in the faith, right? There's more of a guarantee if you take that leap.
And I think it's important for listeners to know, Johanna, she's doing this on her own. You stand on your own 2 feet. You don't have anyone helping you financially. This is your life and you are making it happen.
Yeah.
And everybody else can do the same thing if they know how to do it. So let's tell them how they can find out how to do it by finding you on social media, and tell everybody, where are you?
There's a lot to be said right now. I see a lot of people going through this, men and women. And we often associate ourselves as feminine or masculine, typically. But we have those energies within us, and our life's work is to bring that into balance, right? To be the creator, but also to stand on our own 2 feet, to be a balance of being and doing, creating and manifesting. I even love the word manifesting. Because it's energy first, and then we use our masculine energy to ground the manifestation into, I love words, there's no mistakes. It all starts to come full circle and make sense. So,
right.
Anyways, so one of the best places to find me is johannahunt.ca, and all of my social handles, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, are all johannahunt.ca. And I've got a great Facebook group community called Magnetic Marketing, Align, Attract, Impact. And that's a really great way to just come into the community and learn a little bit more. And you get a welcome package with some free guides, free social media guide, free online business blueprint. I'm always updating. I'd like to give you some experiences of how to work with me and what that looks like. And then the Unfiltered Life podcast as well is a really great place to hear conversations that I have with other entrepreneurs who are, very purpose-driven and have radically expanded themselves. And they have created new stories, new paradigms, new shifts. And our episode is actually it's been a very popular episode, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. I'll have to see. We should link it below because it was really, really popular. And not just the numbers that turned in, the metrics, but I actually had people reach out to me and give feedback on it. So,
wow, that's awesome. Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, if you do choose to work with Johanna, you won't regret it. She has so much expertise, but you're also getting all of who she is and all of her life experience and what she brings to the table. So I encourage you to check her out and let her help you build your dream career. Johanna, thank you so much for being on the show today. You really offered us a lot of wonderful content here. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
That concludes this episode, but if you don't want to wait for the next episode to come out, I have more for you at drwilliamspodcast.com. You can learn more about me and my journey to podcasting, find all the ways to connect with me on social media, and there's a button to subscribe so you're the first to know what's new and upcoming. You also can shoot me an email at hello@drwilliamspodcast.com. You are so special to me, and your support does not go unnoticed. I want to support you too. This podcast is my outlet for growth because when you teach something, you hold yourself accountable and apply the information in life. But the inspiration for these episodes comes in a variety of ways, and one of those is through you. I want you to feel like this is your show too. So send me a message and let me know which episode is your favorite and why. And tell me if there's a topic you'd want to hear me talk about. Your feedback applies to so many people, and your suggestion could change someone's life for the better. The best way to do this is by subscribing to the show and leaving a review through your favorite podcast platform. I really listen to you guys, and this dialogue feeds my soul. You say that you're a fan of me, but truth be told, I am a fan of yours. Everything is working out for each of us, and we're all in this together.